wish the rain would stop just once.
It can't rain all the time.
Erik?
Well. In typical Jeremy Branch fashion, I screwed up and I used the webcam to record my audio as opposed to this microphone sitting right here in front of me. You'd think it was my first week. The conversation that I had with Patrick Stewart was just so good that I had to share it with you regardless. We talked about The Crow. He and I, we share a mutual love for that first film in particular. Less so the rest of them, but we don't really get into that too much. He was a viewer of Holden Hardman's channel. We kind of, started talking. He launched a YouTube channel that's doing really good, so I'll post a link to that down in the description. But we had an awesome conversation. We talked a lot about The Crow, the behind the scenes, the production of the movie. Patrick was like a wealth of knowledge as far as this stuff goes. He taught me things that I had never heard about. So there's definitely going to be some interesting stuff in the conversation. Maybe some of it you haven't heard before, but there was some tragic news that came out of Hollywood in the midst of a union strike for crew members, mostly behind the scenes in film production. Alec Baldwin, longtime Hollywood star, basically Hollywood royalty. Everybody in his family's a famous actor, but recently he mistakenly, as far as we know, and as far as I'm concerned, as of today, he mistakenly shot and killed a cinematographer on the set of this movie, which it just adds another layer of relevancy to The Crow and the situation very similar that happened. But we are going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a lot more. Thanks for checking out this video. Enjoy my conversation with Patrick Stewart.
You were doing the face-off with the trivia, where you'd have like a few guests on.
Sure.
And there was a comment one time where you said, "Hey, throw out some trivia ideas," and I said The Crow. And then it was just like we had this fanboy moment of how we both love The Crow.
Yeah, okay. And it's a film that I saw, obviously, when it first came out. It's directed by Alex Proyas, who, kind of similar to Brandon Lee, didn't have a whole lot of hits following up that film. However, he has done some pretty interesting projects, and we'll probably touch just a little bit on those. But it's based on a graphic novel by James O'Barr. And to be honest with you, though I was kind of starting to collect comics in the early 90s, I was not familiar with The Crow as a graphic novel or as a comic book prior to seeing the film.
Me neither. A matter of fact, I didn't even come into the graphic novel until after I'd seen the movie.
Right, okay, yeah, similar. So I do believe that this is a film that was able to enjoy the successes that it did because it is such a time capsule to the early to mid 1990s. I'm not talking about like 91 to 93, more like 93 to 97, that time when Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails were like the most popular bands on MTV. It was a very specific little era. Bands like Rage Against the Machine were enjoying great success. Rollins band has a spot on the soundtrack to this movie, which the soundtrack is fantastic, but this movie feels very much indebted to the kind of 1990s MTV era aesthetic. And I think that it's a film that there's been a lot of discussion about remaking it ever since it was, ever since people have been digging back up old franchises. But I wonder sometimes, Patrick, like, are we in a world that could even, would it just be a pale imitation of the original?
I really think it would be. Of course, I'd line up to see it like any other person.
Sure, yeah.
I'd throw my money at it just so I can piss and moan about how much it sucks.
Yeah, sure.
Would it make a ton of money on a reboot? Sure, but I don't think it'll ever hold a candle to what it did and what it captured. I don't think you can reproduce that.
Yeah, so there's this whole like social element going on with what's happening in popular culture, and then there's this element of all of a sudden Brandon Lee, the son of Bruce Lee, who essentially dies under mysterious circumstances. Now Brandon Lee has died on the set of a film, and as I said, this isn't like he didn't have a long career at this point. This was kind of the film that was going to likely propel him into superstardom. I mean, this is such a role that is tailor-made to this guy. There's nobody else that could have done it like that. And I also think that's another reason why it would be difficult to do a good like remake or a new sequel to it. But that mystique looming over the top of it also contributes probably pretty greatly to, I think, what's given it a lasting legacy. But I honestly don't think that that's what it was that drew me to the movie so much.
Well, I think what really drew me to it was, I was a kid. I was 13.
Yes. Okay.
And it was kind of like a taboo movie. I went over to a friend's house and he's like, "Hey man, I got this film. Let's watch it." But up to that point, movies for me were just really more entertainment, and that was about it. I didn't pay much attention to the story, to the cinematography. But when I watched that movie, something about that movie captured me. I was paying attention to the lighting, the way they filmed kind of almost black and white versus the colors in the flashbacks, and the soundtrack just grabbed a hold of me. And there were so many elements. I just couldn't stop. Rewind. We had to hit rewind because it was VHS tape.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop rewinding and going back and watching this thing and watching certain scenes again and again and again. It just drew me in. And from that moment on, that's what got me into movie soundtracks. That's what got me into paying attention to directors and just what type of aesthetic they use, kind of like Fifth Element. That's, a very uniquely framed movie.
Yes.
And I would pay attention to those things as opposed to just like, oh, hey, here's this new movie.
I say don't move, Snow White. You move, you're dead.
And I say I'm dead. And I move.
I feel like it embodied just the aesthetic of cool so well, right? Like you said, from the soundtrack to the characters in it, to the dialogue. I feel like it captured an atmosphere in a way that's iconic. It's not like 1989 Batman, but it exists in this reality outside of our own in a similar way. Like this version of Detroit is it's almost like a post-apocalyptic hellscape. You know what I mean? Yes. Yeah,
like
absolutely. And I think that works really well for it. So the movie itself, and I'm assuming you guys have seen the movie. If you haven't, this video will be here, man. So go watch the movie and then come back and talk to us because we're discussing it with you as if you have seen it. So the movie itself obviously is about a man named Erik Draven. Him and his wife, fiance Shelley?
Fiance, they never actually got married.
So they're about to get married and their lives are cut short right before, I think the night of the wedding, the night before they're supposed to get married. This gang of hooligans breaks in, murders both of them, and because the murder is so traumatic, every once in a while a crow will carry the spirit of a deceased person back from the land of the dead to the land of the living to set the wrong things right. And that's the lore and the kickoff point. So all of this kind of is set up through dialogue from a character named Sarah. Sarah is like a surrogate daughter to the two of them. She's not actually related to them, but she's a girl from the neighborhood who skateboards, and she was friends with them. So she sets up what happened. We flash forward a year later, just very efficiently sets up this movie, and he's resurrected. He digs himself out of his grave. Things are coming back into perspective of what happened, and it's almost like he realizes that he's just here so that he can go and exact revenge on this gang of people that attacked him. So this is definitely a revenge movie, and it's also one of the first comic book movies. Pretty cool to see that the comic book genre goes back and predates a lot of what we conventionally think of, and even the more obscure comic books back then were still getting adaptations made for them.
One of the first movie posters actually for The Crow had different font completely than the font that we know now. And it's kind of hard to get your hands on. You can find it on the internet anywhere, but it's a very colorful poster. It's Brandon Lee framed with a whole bunch of red and orange flames. And it's got this script crawl that says darker than the bat. They're trying to ride off the heels of the Batman success and with a darker film. And they're trying to portray the film coming out before it's even, has its first trailer hit the screen as being darker than Batman.
That's very interesting, Patrick. I did not realize that. but it kind of makes sense, kind of speaking to what I mentioned a moment ago. And I feel like those influences from The Crow, which might have been influenced by Batman before that, end up manifesting in The Dark Knight, in particular in Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker, which I feel is very heavily informed by what Brandon Lee did as the Crow.
I just want him.
And as for the television's so-called plan,
Oh yes, I'm glad I'm not the only one that's ever thought that.
Yeah.
Everybody I ever mention that to thinks I'm completely crazy.
No way. Yeah, it's more than a little obvious. There are several like eye movements that he does, the way he rolls his head in certain scenes. There are definite moments where you're like, okay, and that's okay. Performances are often derived from elements of other previous performances that people liked. So no disrespect to what Heath Ledger did. It was fantastic. But yeah, this is such a singular role, and there have been sequels to The Crow. Like this dude named Vincent Perez did it in City of Angels, and I kind of like that one. And then Edward Furlong did it in I don't remember what that one's called. But what do you think about the sequels?
Okay, so the sequels, City of Angels, rated R. I was not yet 18, and he's on my channel. You'll see a guy named Jason. He and I actually skipped school to go see this movie, and we bought tickets to another screen because we couldn't get the R tickets, and then we snuck into that theater. And 30 minutes into the show, I had to pee so bad, like, and I'm holding it because I'm thinking if we leave and I get caught, I can't make it back in. So I'm going to wait until a really, really good scene happens, and then I'll go to the bathroom. The credits are rolling, and I'm about ready to burst. Good scene never happened.
Oh, that's too bad. That's unfortunate. So I kind of like that one, and it does have a very good soundtrack. Also, it
does. I've still got that soundtrack. It's
a good one, and I think it's called Wicked Prayer is the name of the Edward Furlong one. I'm starting to think that that's right, and it is.
You've got The Crow with Brandon Lee. You've got Crow City of Angels.
Okay.
You've got Crow Salvation,
which is
that's the one that with Kirsten Dunst that they filmed in 6 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
And then you've got that Crow one Wicked Prayer where it's like the Indian reservation with Edward Furlong,
where Edward Furlong plays a Native American.
Yeah.
Sure.
And of course, I had to watch it because it says The Crow on it.
And
so if I'm willing to watch that, then of course I'd be willing to watch any reboot that might come our way.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So, and I mean, that's the case with so many movies. Like I tried to sit down and watch the second Candyman, which is a follow-up to a movie that was also made right there, 1992, 1993, and all of the sequels just pale imitations. So I don't think that it's uncommon in that way. But this first film, not only does it feature Brandon Lee, but it also features Tony Todd, who was featured in Candyman. Ernie Hudson obviously plays the police officer in it, who's kind of Sarah's caretaker after the passing of Shelley and Erik.
Michael Wincott, who voices the writer in that video game. I can't remember now. But he plays the jailer in one of Holden's favorite movies, Count of Monte Cristo.
Sure.
And he also plays the swordsman in Disney's take on Three Musketeers. He is actually truly an accomplished swordsman. Really is.
Is that right?
And here's your little gee whiz MacGuffin fact for you. The sword that he uses in The Crow is the same prop used in Princess Bride with the six-fingered man.
Oh, wow. Did not realize that. It's almost like he has something in his rider that's like, if I sign up to do a movie, I get to do a little bit of sword fighting in it just so people know what time it is.
Well, he brushed up on his fencing skills specifically for that rooftop scene with Eric Draven at the end so that he could make the sword fighting look more realistic.
Brandon Lee, who stars as the main character, he's well known that his father is one of the greatest martial artists, if not known as the greatest martial artist of all time. So obviously Brandon Lee is going to bring that sensibility into his film. He'd previously done a movie called Rapid Fire, which is what you think of as a more kind of traditional Hong Kong style American martial arts movie. Not to, say anything negative about it. It's just more what you would think of from a martial arts star. The Crow doesn't heavily lean into a lot of martial arts choreography in traditional ways, and I almost feel like it grounds it and that the film's a little better for it.
I gotta agree. I mean, of course, while I was watching it as a kid, I'm thinking, where's the martial arts? And you get a tiny bit of it in the scene with the big table and the huge shootout. But
Sure.
Other than that, I think what it did was showcase Brandon Lee's talent more as an actor and didn't really ride the coattails of, hey, I'm a Lee martial artist.
Halloween ain't till mañana.
The thing is, in martial arts movies, everybody just busts out into martial arts. It's like, how does everybody know martial arts? I don't know. But when they're actually like kind of just throwing each other around and throwing wild haymakers, it feels more emotionally engaged than it does like a spectacle kind of thing. So I always appreciated that about it. And this is a movie that kind of escalates one interrogation / murder to the next.
Each one of these is a life.
Come back now. Don't kill me.
I'm not gonna kill you. Your job will be to tell the rest of them that death is coming for them. Tonight.
Dirty criminals who work for an organization run by this character, Top Dollar. Tony Todd is like his right-hand man, and then Top Dollar's also got like a lady friend, a female accomplice who there's much debate about the nature of their true relationship, Patrick.
She's supposed to be your sister.
My father's daughter.
Yeah, so he in the movie, it's scripted in the movie. I mean, he's obviously sleeping with her, and Gideon basically points out how twisted he and this lady are, and Top Dollar's he refers to her as his sister, and Gideon's like, is this really supposed to be your sister? Like y'all are, and he's like, well, yeah, it's my father's daughter. So the hint there is that it's his stepsister. I don't know either.
Yeah.
It's messed up.
Half sister, stepsister, who knows? It's definitely a interesting situation there, especially because when we're first introduced to her, she's essentially like roasting an eyeball or something crazy, you know? So there's definitely occult elements going on, but it never really goes into too much need to explain the mythos.
My wife never saw it until we got married, and she saw it for the first time in 2014. And she enjoyed it, but she said, whew, the storytelling is just really just, she goes, you can tell this is dated. And you can.
Sure.
You can.
Sure.
But,
I think Victoria liked it pretty good.
She could see why I liked it. I mean, I've got the crow emblem about yay big tattooed on my back.
No kidding. Oh, wow.
My first tattoo ever. Yeah, it's my favorite movie articles are tattooed on me, and that was it. That was a 6-hour session of an homage to my favorite film.
God, so what is it? Okay, because I actually echo exactly what you just now said. Like, I acknowledge that it's not maybe I feel like Unforgiven probably came out the same year. Unforgiven is a fantastic film. It's really, really good storytelling. It probably deserved Best Picture over The Crow or something like that, but there was something about the movie itself that it spoke like directly, like it influenced me in a way that not a lot of movies do, and I wonder what that was. I don't know that we'll be able to put finer point on it, but I guess if I had to take a stab at it, I would say that it was just I would say that it was mainly aesthetic or alternatively Brandon Lee's performance. It was one or the other of those things.
I think it was a mix of all of it. I mean, for me, I can actually kind of pin it down, maybe not to the exact element, but to the point of my life I was. And there's no put down to my parents. My dad and I have great conversations about this to this day, but I was raised in a very conservative Christian household. I wasn't allowed to listen to any kind of music except country music and Christian music and Michael Jackson. Don't ask about the third. And I was not allowed to listen to anything else. So the only time I got exposed to films or music outside of, my set rules where if I managed to get to somebody else's house and
Understood.
watch the new MTV video, that movie to me summed up everything that, one, was taboo, and two, that was just like, this is art, and this is art on screen. This is art in books. I was actually in middle school, studying Edgar Allan Poe at the time. So this is very much a Edgar Allan Poe gothic brought to life.
Sure.
You can quote Edgar Allan Poe in the movie. And then the soundtrack for me, and this, the whole dark motif with the trench coat and the black makeup. And, there's so many kids in the 90s dressing like that. And that was a movie that my father actually took that soundtrack and said, okay, you can't go buy whatever artist you want. Like, you can't go buy Nine Inch Nails, but if you want soundtracks, you can buy soundtracks.
Oh, really?
Yes. So that was my gateway into all the music I came to love.
So let me ask you a little bit about that, because I do believe that a lot of the bands on this soundtrack really informed the style of music in the 90s. I mean, these are some of the most influential bands of the 90s. The Cure's on it, Nine Inch Nails is on it. I mentioned some of the other bands earlier, Rollins Band,
Stone Temple Pilots.
What would you say is your favorite song on the soundtrack?
You're going to think I'm nuts, but my favorite song is by My Life with a Thrill Kill Cult, called After the Flesh.
Oh, no, it's fantastic. That being crucified.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting it, and mainly because that's the song that's playing in the background
during the greatest scene in the movie.
But
yes,
going to town. After that, I got to say it would be Stone Temple Pilots.
That is it. Big Empty from the Crow. Okay, yeah.
Which actually was not originally the song they contributed to the soundtrack.
Okay.
They originally contributed a song that was not. It was they had only demoed. They'd not released on an album. It was called Only Dying. But obviously, following Brandon Lee's death, they thought it would be a bit distasteful to have a song about dying on the soundtrack.
Sure.
So they flipped it around and they gave Big Empty, which has got that classic little slide guitar kind of. I just love the sound of that.
It's a great song. I think though I do love Dead Souls and Ghost Rider Motorcycle Hero, I think I am gonna have to go with the Cure song.
Every Night I Burn.
Every Night I Burn, and it is when he puts on his makeup, which is also just another really pivotal scene in the movie. So those are two great ones, but I don't think you could go wrong. There's some really good song choices on the soundtrack. So yeah, Patrick, I think you hit on a couple of the really key elements that did make it the success, and then there is the love story aspect of it, which you did touch on, the fact that it's very gothic. So a lot of times the romance element is a part of that, and though I said there's not a whole lot of scenes with the two of them together, I think that Brandon Lee's physicality, like the performance in between the script, in between the dialogue, gives you a lot of the emotional weight that the movie needs to kind of sustain itself, which speaks highly of him as a performer.
Oh, yes. And I think Alex Proyas did great in changing the lighting when we get those flashback scenes that show Erik Dravenmore as a human. You get more of he's smiling, he's laughing, he's more at ease. Just the way he moves is a whole lot different. And then you see the way he moves as an actor when you get him into makeup for The Crow, and it's just like he's got this very purposeful, I can't say that word, purposeful, menacing kind of gait about him, like he's a hunter.
Yes.
Prey.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, man, don't do that!
And he maintains a really dark and wry sense of humor throughout it also. I think this movie's got some pretty good gallows humor in it. A couple of the lines that he has throughout it I think work really well, including the
Jesus Christ walks into a hotel. He hands the innkeeper 3 nails and he asks, "Don't you ever fucking die? You put me up for the night?"
No, yeah, Michael Massey actually died in 2016. And he's the one that played Fun Boy.
Yeah.
And he actually regretted he never actually could go back and watch the movie because he was the one that actually pulled the trigger that killed Brandon Lee.
Oh, so this is the scene, is the Fun Boy scene.
Well, that's not the scene that killed him. where he was actually killed in the film was when they were filming the flashback scenes, when you actually see Eric Draven and Shelley murdered, and Funboy's supposed to be the one that kills them. And of course, there was that piece of the blank that was left in the chamber. So when they did the fire shot with the powder explosion, that piece is what hit him, and they thought he was acting. Of course, when they filmed that scene, only when they yelled cut, of course, he wasn't getting back up. So they took that out and then reshot it with the body double and had, him getting shot in the back and then thrown out the window. But the irony of ironies, not being callous about it, was you see him filming that, shot with Funboy up in the loft and him saying, "Take your shot, Funboy. You got me, dead bang."
Yeah.
Well, he's actually the guy that killed him.
Yeah, that's got to be pretty heavy for anybody, because that's not what you sign up to act for. That's not what you sign up for a movie, and especially a movie of this scale. It wasn't as if this was a small production or something. I mean, it wasn't a $2 million or $200 million movie, but it wasn't a $2 million movie either. So there's kind of a thing where when people die young, they tend to always be romanticized, whether it be Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, Brandon Lee. There's all of these kind of mythical figures that did die young, and I do believe that adds to the mystique, especially in retrospect. But at the time, I don't think that was the thing that was the key to its success. I really don't. But anyways, yeah, that's something that I kind of think about, because it does seem like it is such a huge shadow over the film's legacy. But I do really think that it was always more than simply that.
It was the number one movie its opening weekend.
Oh, really?
Yes. So there's this misconception that it only had like a cult following its release to VHS, kind of like Vin Diesel's what is it?
Pitch Black or something?
Yeah, Pitch Black, where you get introduced to that character.
Uh-huh.
No, The Crow had great success from the beginning, even in theaters. Now, granted, it's had more success after the fact because of the cult following, but it was very successful in theater.
So as he's going and tracking down each of the different villains, there's a couple of the kills in particular that really resonate with me, and the Funboy one is probably my favorite of them, but the one that sets the tone is the one that he has with Knife Guy. What's his name?
Tintin. Played by Lawrence Mason, who actually studied knife throwing for the role. But that one really kind of set the pace. It was really gritty, hands-on. And you want to talk about kind of like informing Heath Ledger's role when he drops himself off the roof and he's cackling, having it Tintin. Right then, I mean, he's laughing his butt off because, like, hey, this dude's dead. Yeah. He's dead.
Yes. Okay, so to that point, I think it is worth mentioning that throughout most of the movie, he's literally invincible. As long as the Crow is not been injured, he is completely invulnerable to the attacks of his victims, which gives the movie, like, a level of catharsis that few other films have, just because, he knows that there's nothing these people can do. He's literally unstoppable, but then the stepsister / half-sister, whatever, sister situation, she mentions to Top Dollar, she somehow knows, I guess she's reading through some witch book or something, and she's like, if the Crow dies, he loses his power. So towards the end of the film, they actually do wound the bird, and that's when he gets in a situation where he actually can die, and that's when, the stakes greatly improve. But do you think that the lack of being worried about him dying, ruins the movie, or does it just change the kind of movie it is?
I don't think it ruins it. I think it changes it, because you said a key word, catharsis. I have always found this movie to be a cathartic release of things that we can't run around in real life and avenge the people we love.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. But I can dump all my angst and my just nastiness into this film, and at different parts of my life, I've been able to come back to it. The teenager angst versus the post-military PTSD angst, two totally different things.
Sure.
But I found solace in this movie where I could have that release through this fictional character that I can't do in real life. You mentioned the damage to the Crow, something that's left out of the movie. There is one character we don't get that's in the graphic novel, and that's Skull Cowboy. And you can see that in the deleted scenes. And Skull Cowboy actually is supposed to be the one that informs Eric Draven how his powers work.
Okay.
And he is brought back for one specific reason, and that is to avenge his and Shelley's deaths on the people that actually murdered them. Not Top Dollar who made the decision, but the actual 4 gangsters. In the movie that's deleted later because they didn't want to do the reshoots because Brandon Lee's no longer around, Skull Cowboy reappears. He appears first at his resurrection in the graveyard, and the crow flies from Skull Cowboy's shoulder to Eric Draven, and he tells him how his powers work. And he tells him if you use your powers for anything other than killing these people, you become mortal. And then at the end, when he's going into the cathedral to rescue Sarah, Skull Cowboy then reappears to tell him, if you go in here, you're going to fight as a mortal because this isn't why you're here. You're supposed to go back to the grave. Not Eric Draven, but Brandon Lee actually had already signed on for 2 more sequels, because the sequels were supposed to be based around him being stuck kind of like in purgatory on Earth, wandering as an undead because he violated the rules. So they went ahead and gave us this easy way out of the crow's damage, so now he's not invincible.
I see.
For me, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. It makes the movie a lot simpler. And plus the look of Skull Cowboy, I'm glad they did delete the scenes. And the reason they deleted them is they thought it didn't fit the aesthetic and it looked really hokey. It was a guy in a rubber skull suit.
Oh, yeah, okay. I got to see this. I didn't realize that was a thing. And I am glad because they sort of used the crow as his spirit guide, right? You know,
Yes.
like almost as if it has some sort of ancient Native American properties to, you know what I'm saying? Like some old
You can
mythical
see through its
stuff.
eyes and all that cool stuff.
Yeah. So I think that does just simply streamline it, and it keeps the supernatural element a little bit more, I guess, mystical, and keeps the crow a more kind of special entity. And that's a thing that really sucks about the sequels is sometimes something so bad happens that a crow carries the person back. So it's like just how I don't like the different, like the subbing out of different characters, and the fact that Sarah was involved in the sequel, it's just like too close a connection. But anyways, yeah, I think that this is a movie that needs to be seen, if for nothing else, just to kind of give people an idea about what that very specific time in the 1990s was, where this was mainstream. Like, it's so crazy to think about. Am I misremembering it, or was 9 Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson like the biggest acts then?
They were. All my friends in high school, that's all it was about, man. I couldn't get away from it.
Yeah.
Everywhere you went was kids dressed, guys with black dyed hair and black clothes and lipstick and thinking they're Marilyn Manson and 9 Inch Nails. I mean, that was it. Right
and
there.
it lasted, I think, all of 2 years, and it was awesome. Like, it was like right in my prime. Like, I loved that stuff. So this is definitely a movie that I will always remember fondly, and one that I do revisit often, because I think, touching on the catharsis aspect of it, I do feel that must be what people love about the revenge genre in general, is just that in our own lives where we were put in a situation where we don't have that kind of control. So to see, people be able to act out these things that, like, if I was in this situation, this is what I would do. I remember, like, Red Dawn being a movie like that to me when I was a kid.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's, you had pointed out to me, I of course I key in on things with Brandon Lee, and Brandon Lee said, how is a person that comes back from the dead supposed to act? He's like, we don't have rules for this. He's like, so I get to bring something to a character that's never been done before. So I took that, and in my mind, this had never been done before, which of course the trope has been done before. You pointed out to me, Dirty Harry. This is an undead Dirty Harry.
Yeah, it is.
You're right. This was kind of the norm.
I gotta ask, because I think you've got some really good trivia for me. Let's talk a little bit before we wrap this thing up about just some fun facts about the movie, either A, about your connection to it, or B, just production stuff, things we don't know.
Okay. Well, one of the things that you'll get is I'm going to bring in the Wachowskis in the Matrix. You know how the Matrix is full of all these underlying symbolisms of the ship called the Nebuchadnezzar, and Neo's name being the one. Well, The Crow did this way before Matrix ever did. There's this weird kind of connection from The Crow to the Matrix. Director Alex Proyas, who also directed Dark City, the rooftop scenes in Dark City is the same set used in The Matrix. And of course, Alex Proyas directed The Crow.
Interesting.
Well, all that being said, is you have a couple of these little sub meanings. The cat, the first spoken word by Eric Draven in The Crow is Gabriel when he reaches down to pick up the cat. And of course, as soon as he touches the cat, then ensues all these visions that he receives that are flashbacks to the past to kind of inform him about why he's there, what his mission is. Gabriel is a biblical figure whose sole mission is to deliver messages in divine visions. And that's what the white cat kind of represents in the movie.
Sure.
And then you have Gideon in Gideon's pawn shop, who actually isn't killed by Eric Draven. He's killed by his own boss, Top Dollar. And Gideon also being a quote unquote biblical figure who's supposed to be a trumpet blower and herald a message of doom to the enemies.
Oh, wow.
And that's exactly what Eric Draven does. It shows up on the scene, kind of all gothy, quoting some Edgar Allan Poe, and says, oh, by the way, go tell your boss that death is coming and that Eric Draven sends his regards. So there's very much a little bit of a deeper sub-messaging going on that's kind of just overlooked for all the violence and grittiness.
You know, that's super cool, and I didn't think about it in terms of that. My middle name is Gabriel, so that's cool. That's a cool connection.
Well, now I know what the G stands for.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And then also, there's a similar scene in Tombstone that I also find incredibly effective, and it's when Wyatt Earp tells Ike, basically run and tell the rest of the cowboys that Wyatt Earp is coming and hell is coming with me. And again, just such a great, like, oh yeah, this kicks ass line. And I think that The Crow has a handful of those. There's the scene where he catches the knife.
Try again. Victims, aren't we all?
The "Can you put me up for the night" punchline of the crucifixion joke.
I mean, you want to talk about cringe. It gets you kind of like nails on a chalkboard.
Yes.
And you just bought in.
Yes. What a great scene. Yeah, and when the light bulb is dangling down and he rolls his head around the light bulb, that is very much so terrifying. And then revs the guitar like a chainsaw.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. There are so many moments.
Here's one for you. His body double. There's very few scenes in the movie where Brandon Lee's not actually in it. He's in 99% of the movie. The last scene, he only had 3 days left of shooting when he died, and it was going to be all the scenes in the loft, which is why you get in the loft the whole crappy CGI of him in the mirror, which is the first time they tried to do a deep fake on screen, not successfully so. But anyway, his stunt double, the one that stood in for him, is Chad Stahelski, who is the creator and co-director of John Wick, which is a series about a guy whose wife dies, and because he isn't allowed to grieve, he goes wrecking vengeance on anybody.
Yes.
So, it's another Crow.
He was the body double of Brandon Lee in... Wow, that's something else.
He's the guy in the makeup up in the loft.
What about the scene where he's running across the rooftop of the buildings? And is that incorrect to think that they did the face compositing there too?
Well, that was his body double for stunt purposes because it just wasn't safe.
Yeah, okay.
But there were rooftop scenes with him up there, which was actually Brandon Lee. The only time you really don't see Brandon Lee is anytime it's in the loft and it's not a flashback. Anytime it's him playing guitar, not him.
Interesting.
There's very few scenes that don't actually have Brandon Lee. As far as like little other cool, awesome things is, the movie, it's rated R, it's full of language. But almost every time, well, not almost every time, it is every time. Listen to the cops every time they freak out about something. They keep saying the same line throughout the whole movie.
What the crap?
What the crap? What the crap? It's like we got all this language flying around. And the cops get upset, and it's what the crap.
That's so funny, dude. I totally forgot about that until you mentioned it. I do want to mention one more scene. Talk about just doing a lot with a little is the scene where Erik finally makes his way to talk to what's the character's name? The police officer's name?
Officer Albrecht.
Officer Albrecht, he finally goes and has a conversation with him because the police officer is looking into this mysterious ghost-like figure that keeps showing up at the scenes of all these unexplained crimes. This vigilante Joker out there murdering people, and it leads to a conversation one night, and just the dialogue between them, the fact that the police officer's smoking a cigarette, and Erik says the thing about, I used to think cigarettes were gonna kill you. There's not a lot of dialogue in it, and again, this isn't a movie with a lot of character work, but just the whole thing about leaving through the front door instead of the window, it's just like, it makes you feel for this guy and humanizes him in such a small way.
Oh, you see him, yeah. He's like hunched over and he's holding himself, and he's like, he's like, no, I just think I'll use your front door.
Yeah.
And yeah, you called it. That scene very much made you just heart grab for the character.
You can't be you. We put you through the window. There ain't no coming back. This is the really real world. There ain't no coming back.
T-Bird.
Okay.
Oh yeah, David Patrick Kelly, great actor.
He is from the Warriors, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. He's Warriors clinking the bottles together. Okay, that's one other thing I can think of him from. However, he is a character actor from that time period that's in quite a bunch of stuff.
Well, speaking of character actor, and he was also, very much like a method actor. He, both him and Michael Wincott researched occult type stuff, preparing for the role. They wanted to understand what they were getting into, but he actually went out and purchased a copy of Milton's Paradise Lost. It was the second most expensive prop on set, was the Book of Paradise Lost.
Oh, wow.
It was his copy that he read from in those flashback scenes. The most expensive prop being Brandon Lee's leather pants.
Is that right?
$10,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
oh, wow.
Leather pants could cost that much. And they destroyed them.
So the way that T-Bird, he is sort of what I would consider the leader of the gang, and they've got this Devil's Night ritual where they go and they set fires to all of these places that they vandalize, and they're saying it's fire it up. Fire it up! And they get all hyped up doing that. So it's kind of ironic that he should die by fire. And there's a bit of that kind of poetic justice served to our characters throughout this. But
each of them, Tintin with the knives,
yes.
T-Bird with the fire. You got
Fun Boy with the drugs.
Boy kills him with his own drugs.
Yeah.
And Skank.
Guess it's not a good day to be a bad guy, huh, Skank?
What up, Skank? That's Skank right there. Skank dead.
He just goes out like Skank.
So T-Bird ends up getting duct taped into the interior of his... It's a T-Bird, right?
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say. Okay. And then Erik basically puts the brake to the gas and the accelerator, blows his car up as he drives it off a pier, and then the super iconic trailer shot where... It's so freaking cool.
It is.
It's a great shot, and I'm imagining they did that in camera, huh?
If they had to.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
It was whole scene, like you said. That's the iconic, defines the movie.
Yeah.
It really does.
And yeah, the music, the epic choir of the music comes in, and it's so good. It's such a good movie. And then yes, that leads us to Skank, and as he said, Skank just kind of goes out like Skank would at the end of the movie. But I figure that's why Erik pursues Top Dollar in the club, is he wasn't actually after Top Dollar. He was trying to get to Skank.
Yes,
but they wouldn't let him.
That's all he wanted. He even told him, just give me him and it's done. You mentioned Top Dollar in the club. When he goes on his rant about Devil's Night and it being an institution, and he talks about the woes of capitalism.
Yes.
And he's just going on and on and on about making the gods notice him again and anarchy being fun. Almost every bit of dialogue was ad-libbed by Michael Wincott.
Oh, that's great.
He just went on a rant, and they just said, go for it.
And that really is one of the better scenes of dialogue in the movie. To think that's just completely off the dome, and also not completely dissimilar to some of the things that the Joker says in The Dark Knight.
There you go.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are quite a bit of similarities. I love this scene. So he does. They're having a large business meeting, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And he comes in just completely casually, nonchalantly walks into the room. Gentleman interrupts the meeting and it just kind of like plops up on the table at the end and gives them the ultimatum. Either you guys give me him or I'm going to run through all of you. And they make the decision to go the hard way, and they all pull out guns and they shoot him. He falls off the table and they're like, oh, is he dead? Of course he's not dead. And we go to like this really great action sequence set to the song, the My Life from the Thrill Kill Cult song on the soundtrack. And it's staged really well. There's a lot of almost prototypical gun fu in that scene, wouldn't you say?
Yes. Good gracious. Guns galore. He's shooting, doing the thing, rolling around, grabbing the sword, throwing chairs, flipping over. I mean, yeah, it's John Wick before John Wick existed. It's the boogeyman before Baba Yaga came around.
It really is. It really has elements of that and the Matrix in it. The trench coat, like... This movie is, I think, more influential than it gets credit for, and I think I'm stumbling upon things right now as we're having this conversation that I've never really considered before. It's really interesting.
Well, a route I'm glad they didn't go because of the musical nature of this. Erik Draven is a rock star. He's part of a band called Hangman's Joke, and he can't rain all the time. Your awesome shirt there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
But can't rain all the time, and they wanted it to have that music feel. When they made the movie, they were adamant about, we're going to center this around the whole musicality of the character. And, we're going to grab the music from our culture at that point in time, being the 90s. And they considered making it actually a black and white musical before they decided to make it an action film.
Oh, boy.
Starring none other than
Johnny
Michael
Depp.
Jackson.
Oh, what?
Michael Jackson.
No, get out of here.
Now, James O'Barr wanted Johnny Depp for the role. It was Johnny Depp, River Phoenix, and Christian Slater who he had originally, years before, envisioned playing the role. But when they considered making this a musical, the person that they were going to approach in very early talks was Michael Jackson.
Ah, wow.
That could have gone a whole different way.
Yeah. It would be so problematic now, and we didn't even know back then.
A moonwalking zombie.
That is the craziest thing, man.
I'm glad they didn't.
There's a movie called Dead Man that Jim Jarmusch did with Johnny Depp that was black and white that came out around that same time that had a little bit of a similar vibe. Did you ever see that?
Haven't seen it, no.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting. There's a little bit of an overlap there, but I can see Johnny Depp in the role of Erik Draven, but I'm very glad that it went to who it did, because I feel like the relatively unknown nature of the actor really does add to just being able to make him relatable. Sometimes when they hire people that are too big, you see the actor, and I feel like maybe Christian Slater would have been one of those people at the time. It feels like River Phoenix would have been like a really good fit for it though too.
Oh yeah,
to be fair.
I think so. But I'm glad we got who we got.
Yeah, same.
His last given interview, Brendan Lee's interview, there's a quote that he talks about we think of life being an inexhaustible well, and really life's only made up of very few moments actually that'll never happen again, and we think it's all limitless. Well, it's attributed to Brandon Lee, but it actually wasn't Brandon Lee. The quote originally was by Paul Bowles, but that is the quote that's on Brandon Lee's tombstone, is the quote that he gave when he gave his last interview on the set of The Crow when they were promoting The Crow.
Oh, wow. Who's the original guy? Do you know?
Yeah, it's a guy named Paul Bowles.
Do you know what Paul Bowles is?
I have no idea who he is.
Yeah.
I just know he says because we don't know when we'll die, we get to think of life as an inexhaustible well, yet everything only happens a certain number of times in a very small number of times. And that is also part of what informed my life and spoke to me, was this whole, because when I watched the movie, I went and of course dug up every interview I could with Brandon Lee, and it's like, these bygone Jim moments of,
yeah, sure,
life's not inexhaustible. And that's the actual attitude that he used to inform the role. James O'Barr himself, of course, he felt very guilty about all the money he made off the movie and didn't keep any of it.
Really?
He bought his mom a house, paid off his bills, and I think bought a car, and then he gave it all to charity. And it's taken nearly 20 years for him to come out and even admit that he gave it all to charity, because people have been kind of like, hey, you know, James Obar gave all this money to charity. And he said, well, you know, if people know about it, it's not charity.
And there you have it, guys and gals. That is the interview in its entirety. I know there was a ton of insightful information in it, so I know I enjoyed having the conversation. Make sure you check out Patrick Stewart's YouTube channel. There is a link down in the description. I'm Jeremy, and until the very next video, be terrible. Peace.